Un lugar in between is a space for anyone who has ever felt in between places, cultures, or identities. I am Andrea, your host. In each episode, I talk with migrants, refugees, and people on the move about how change shapes us and how we build belonging along the way. This is a space to reflect, to be seen, and to build a more inclusive world. Hi, welcome to another episode of Un Lugar in Between. Today, I am with Jennifer Serrat, who is all about community building, creative expression, and traveling. Jenn is originally from France, and she has lived across different cultures and countries. Through her lived experience and her work, Jennifer embodies what it means to navigate life in between places, languages, and different ways of seeing the world. Welcome, Jenn. I'm very happy to have you here.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, it's a good to see you again. And this is to see you in this space, but also like to have the opportunity to know more about you. And so to start, I would like to start with a question that I ask every guest, one that invites us to look beyond titles or labels. So if you had to introduce yourself without using job titles or labels, where would you start?
Yeah, that's a really hard question because, well, not only is it difficult to talk about oneself, but also when we live in a society that kind of makes work be our identity. Uh, it's a challenging question, but if I had to peel off those first surface layers and go to the core, I would say that I'm an empath. And so I kind of live a double-edged sword life because I feel the good and the hard stuff, but a bit too much sometimes. So perhaps that's why some of my values I have written for myself a couple years back are grounded in having integrity and being surrounded by your own community and the people that you feel safe around. Also, being able to be creative and express yourself and in order to generate some ideas and also to release that. For me, singing is a really good release, and generating ideas excites me because I'm like, oh my God, so many possibilities, so many opportunities.
That's so good. Like, yeah, it's so good. Like, because I with these questions, I never know what people will answer. You know, like, and sometimes I know a bit about them, but in this case, we don't know for long. So it's good to to know all of these details about you, and we will have the time during the episode to explore more deep. Well, you live in different parts of the world. You have the experience of living in different parts of the world. Can you walk us through some of those moves in your story and what were the feelings or motivations behind those decisions?
So I'll start from the beginning where I was born. I was born in France. My dad is French. And the first 6 months we were there and then moved to Montreal in Canada. My mother is Canadian. And then living 6 years there until I was 6, we moved to back to France and lived in the suburb of Paris for the next 10 years. And then we moved back to the States in 2003. So I was 16 and we were in Indiana in the Midwest. And after that, I lived there until I was 26 and I got bored of life in the Midwest. And, you know, the US culture is very much so, at least my experience was that right after university, if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you know, you move in together, you get a dog, you get engaged, you get married, you buy the house, you have a baby. And this was like right out of college. So in your early 20s, early to mid 20s. And for me, I had just also gotten out of a 5-year relationship and I was just thinking there's got to be more to life, as Stacey Orico sings. So I moved to South Korea and I taught English there for a year. And that was kind of like the beginning of the rest of my life. I thought I'm never moving back to the States. It was such an amazing experience. After that, moved to Australia for 6 months, and then I moved to Spain, where I lived for 6 years, and now I've been in Berlin for the last 4 years. And so the moves I made as an adult, so starting from South Korea, were a mix of impulse, some gut feeling, and maybe wanting something different. I didn't have a grand plan. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just followed what felt exciting, what felt natural to me.
I am so interested, why South Korea?
When that came into my mind, I was invited to go to a happy hour at like 5 o'clock somewhere. And to me, I almost didn't go. I was like, oh my God, it's another happy hour with the same people at the same bars. And I just ended up going. And there I met someone who had just returned from teaching in South Korea. And it just kind of lit something in me, like, the light bulb. And I was like, oh my God, South Korea. You can teach English in South Korea. I thought you could teach English in China, or either way. I was on a mission going to South
Yeah,
Korea.
it's like that kind of things like meant to be, like you are thinking about that, like, and after like someone talk about that, so it's
Yeah.
quite nice.
No, and we'll, if should this pop up later on in the conversation, it's funny when I look back that certain things are kind of like linked, or maybe, I don't know if whoever listens believes in destiny or in fate or whatever, the universe, but there is a link there that I found interesting later on when I met my husband.
And what do you remember about Jennifer at that moment, like just before taking that decision, the first time that you moved to South Korea? Because you mentioned like it was about always all this move about gut feelings and impulse and all of that. But what do you remember about Jennifer during those days?
So before going to Korea, what my feelings are of excitement, just kind of like it was the right thing to do. So I felt calm in my decision. What was more difficult was convincing my mother as to why I was going. Because at that age, I didn't like children. And, I don't have patience for children. Not that I don't like them, I just don't have patience for them. So for her, it was like, why are you moving across the world and you don't even like children? Why do you want to teach children across the planet? And it wasn't even about that. It was just about the experience and just maybe stepping into a place or a moment where I could become someone or become the person that I'm supposed to be. Uncharted territory, something unknown, something completely different than, always going to the 5 o'clock happy hour with the same people, the same place, something completely different, foreign language, foreign culture.
About all of these moves that you have made, was there a move or moment that felt especially defining or life changing to you?
Well, moving there gave me the freedom. It was the first time I was living on my own at 26, away from everything that felt comfortable. My parents, my family, friends, siblings. It gave me space. It gave me the independence and a totally new lens, obviously, on the world. Um, and I really think it just changed me forever. That's why I told you earlier it was the beginning of the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think it's easier to take, well, let's say, quoting, easier to take the decision after to moving once you did once. It's still like challenges because like after you arrive and you see like, oh, the language or the culture is totally different, so you remember like all that first years or yeah, or first time of like adapting to a new country. But I think the process to take the decision is easier when you are already done. So I think maybe that South Korea was for you, no, like okay, now it's easier for me to change the country than, I don't know, someone that never done in the past. So I, yeah. What was the next one you say, because you mentioned a lot of countries? What was the next country after
Australia.
Australia? Okay.
So we would meet people, other expats, immigrants in South Korea, and a lot of them would mention going to Australia after, because it was right under, clear, like
Okay.
literally under the South Korea. And so my friend and I decided to do Australia after Korea. In the end, she didn't come because she had met someone, so she chose him over me. It's a reoccurring joke we have. We're still friends, but she ended up marrying him, so it worked out. Yeah, so I had bought the visa, and it was expensive. You know, it was $400. So at 26, of course, and on my teacher salary was a lot. And so I decided to go. And so I went by myself. And it was different because it was an English speaking country. So there wasn't the wonder of the local people being like, oh my God, a white person. Oh my God, you have blue eyes. Or like, they would take pictures with me in Korea, you know, and in Australia, it's just like, oh, great, another American, or like another Canadian, or it wasn't that big of an impact for them. And so for me, I couldn't even teach English, obviously, but I was looking for work, and eventually I ended up working for Greenpeace, and I was what they call a chugger in their slang. A chugger is a charity mugger. So I was the one on the street that stops you, and I viscerally did not feel comfortable doing it at all. It made me feel so uncomfortable and uneasy going up to people and like not asking them for money. I was obviously working for a good cause. My cause that I was working on was the Great Barrier Reef, and just explaining to them the damages that were being caused, and how we could save it, and all the repercussions of all of these oil companies and all of that. And a lot of them agreed, but you know, as soon as you're like, okay, so do you want to give monthly donations, you know, it's like I felt like I trapped them. And so it didn't really feel like me to do that. Most of them were like, you know, this is a great cause, whatever, but no, I'm not going to do it. Or they would give cash, but obviously cash is not accepted. So anyway, I didn't last too long at that job. And I also au paired for a couple months, did some waitressing, and that's it. I was like, okay, I'm done. I did some traveling on my own. It was really beautiful, really nice. And then I decided to move to Spain after a friend of mine that I met in Korea, that was in my school. She had said that she had taught in Spain, and now she was here in Korea. So I had asked her about it, and I did the program through the ministry there, and moved to Spain. And because I was so disappointed in myself in leaving Korea after 1 year, because I thought I should have stayed longer, but I went home after the year. I said, okay, for Spain, I'm definitely not staying just 1 year. So I taught English for a year, and then I got my master's degree, and then I continued teaching until I could find work. And then I ended up being hired by the university where I got my master's. And that was where I began my journey in community building with students from across the world, and just creating that sense of belonging with the university, because they were all from over 100 different countries. So in the States, you would say, you know, whenever you have homecoming party or all of these events or sports events and all that stuff that really foster that, Europe doesn't have it, or because it's Western. It's really kind of Western, so they don't really understand it yet. So that's what I did. I managed the student clubs, so the user groups in person, did the galas, did the community awards for the student clubs, the homecoming, and all of that, and I loved it. I loved it.
Oh. Yeah, that's so good to know. I also I like going back to the Australia experience. I also had the experience to do au pair, but I did in Ireland for a few months.
Mm.
Is something that I don't know, like it, because it was a short time. Sometimes I just forget about it, but it was very interesting experience as well. And also my family say the same than say to you, like, why you're going there if you don't like children.
I
I want to
know.
ask you if after all this experience, do you like children now or still the same?
No, you know what? I still don't have patience for that. And I've come to a point where I'm like, do I even have maternal instinct? Like, I'm sure if I were to have kids, I would obviously care for my kids. And it's different when it's your children. But I don't know. I think I also have to remind myself that children are just small humans who still haven't been able to manage their emotions, and they're still learning. They don't know how to express themselves yet. Hopefully, I'm whenever I'm in a bus or in a metro or in a shop where they're just screaming hysterically, it's because they're trying to soothe themselves and their parents are doing the best that they can. So,
Yeah, for me, for example, being to Ireland for a few months to do au pair, it was just because to live in the country, like it was part of the process of my migration. But I just have to realize it was like a very good experience and helped me to reflect about the fact if I want or not children, about maternity and all of that. And I didn't expect that at the beginning of the experience because you are just going for a few months and that's it. But yeah, it really changed a lot of things about, I don't know, the structure of families or anyway, like different things. So so I asked you for that because for me it was like kind of interesting in
well,
that sense.
what was the verdict for you?
No, I don't know yet, but
You still don't know. Okay.
no, like I mean, like I like children now, but yeah, I just still like seeing like children as a big responsibility and like and
It
well,
is.
children
Yeah,
and
totally.
building a family in general like as a big responsibility. So,
Yeah.
but that experience
For,
helped me to see other structure of families and other like I was living in Venezuela before that. So that was a big change in the way of the family structure in comparison to the culture in
yeah.
Venezuela. I don't
Don't
know.
Venezuelans they're really big on family,
Yeah,
aren't
also
they?
that.
Well, Latin Americans. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, I ask you because it's like I think one of the highlights for this kind of experience, people, like you don't go to this experience thinking like I will reflect about maternity in these 3 months of au pair, something like that. But but it's like people underestimate sometimes how these experiences could help you to shape your perspective about different things and reflect about what you want and see other
Yeah.
things.
It depends also in what stage of your life you are. So back then, I wasn't planning on having children. So I didn't use that experience to be like, oh, is this going to make me want to have kids or not? I was just solely really thinking about myself and how I did not like to have my entire days be revolving around a 2-year old child or however old she was. I was like, no, I'm not okay with this and I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, is out. And how
Hmm.
like how did you think all of these experiences have shaped who you are? You already mentioned a few things like the freedom or for example your career path in community building, but there are other things of your personality or the person who you are today that they are shaped by those experiences.
Up until I was ready to move to Berlin, I was just kind of going with the flow. I didn't really have a plan. I felt that my brain was very scattered and all over the place. But I knew that continuing to live in Spain would not help me evolve as a person because in Spain you're not paid well. And the companies I worked for didn't have the best culture. And I would hear from other friends too that whenever they were with Spanish companies, it was pretty toxic. And and working in community. Already it's misunderstood. They don't really know what it is. I didn't know if I could find another job in community, and I loved it. At that time, I had met Rafa, my husband, that year, and I thought, okay, I have like one more country in me, and so we looked at countries within Europe, but we looked at the richest countries. So we looked at Denmark, we looked at Switzerland, and we looked at Germany, and we're like, okay, let's like do a table and compare and see where we would fit the best. And that moment is when I clicked and I changed. My brain became like super structured and looking out for a plan and just identifying everything and pinpointing and adding and summarizing and just really trying to do a real life quiz to identify what country we should move to next based on what we wanted. And in hindsight, I don't know if this was my anxiety kicking in or it was just me thinking, okay, yeah, I am going to turn 30. No, I was 33. I was 33. I was like, okay, I'm 33. I should probably like start planning my life and what I want out of it and where I would like to go. Because I can't save, I can't invest while I'm still in Spain or not on this job, not on this salary at least. All of those experience maybe led me to a point where, okay, I need to now plan ahead. And so I need to be Jenn, the structured person, instead of Jenn, scattered brain. Go with the flow, Jenn. So
Yeah, well, but that's very interesting because also like it's because you had the opportunity to go with the flow first and to have like these gut feelings and like follow those paths. So I think when we gave that opportunity, is easier to go through like the difference, like okay, now I want a bit more of a structure, but if like I don't know, sometimes people
yes,
get into that structure very quickly and is difficult, yeah, to go with the flow after. So I don't know.
it is like people do change, and I'm proof of it because and change in a good way. It doesn't mean you're changing. You're evolving really, and so I realized this because I'm a sucker for all of these personality assessments like the MBTI and the gene keys or the human design. I love them, or the Enneagram. And so, of course, I took all of them. And when I was pre Germany, I was MBTI and ENFP. And so that was the campaigner. That's the name. It's part of the diplomatic family. And the campaigner is kind of the human version of like a Labrador and like all over the place. And it's human tornado and like everything's everywhere all at once. And you don't know what you're doing. You're just going with it and you're happy, whatever. And then once I moved, I became, or when I was in the process of moving, I was still within the diplomat family, and I became an ENFJ, and that's the protagonist. And so the J and the P is what changed. P was perception and J is judging, but judging not in the sense that I'm judgmental person, in the sense that I will analyze and take my decision based on educated guesses or whatever research that I have done, and then structure it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, I also like all of these tests. I didn't have, or I don't know, this is the one of 16 personalities, or is another one? Okay, yeah, I just don't
Exactly.
remember what I was in the past, but I think I also changed in some point.
Yeah, and you
Uh,
can take it for free. It's 16personalities.com.
yeah, I think I did like 2 times in my life. I need to go through my emails to see what I was. I think it was the
Yeah,
green
do
one.
it.
It was
I
because
don't
it
know
was
what the
like,
green one is.
yeah, it's very interesting. And also like the human design I just discovered like a few years ago. So that's another one. Which one
Yeah,
are you of human design? I'm just curious.
I'm a manifester.
Oh, nice. Not
So that's
me.
where all my idea generation comes from.
Yeah, that's, well, it's good like you are connected with all of these things. I know that some people don't believe on this kind of test or all of that, and I respect that. It's okay. but it's I think I just found like as a tools to like reflect about yourself and see like, oh, I identify with this or not, and like you can just understand your tools better to add. I just want to go back to the story because you said you met your husband in Spain and you decide to migrate together. So I want to know more about what it was about that process, because I know it's a lot, uh, like a lot of happening in deciding migrate together as a couple, I think.
Thankfully, Rafa was also someone who had traveled a lot, came from an international family, so it was quite easy to have him be on board.
So it was your idea to migrate, like the Germany
Yeah,
idea. It was yours,
I mean,
kind of start.
I planted it. I was like, hey, how about moving elsewhere and testing it out for a couple of years or 3 years and seeing if we like it, and if not, we always come back. Because I felt like I need to know if Spain is my home. I need to know if it's really my country. And so, yeah, he was open to it, and he had also quit his job, and so we were both and we were both starting our lives together. So it was really kind of like a clean slate for both of us to start something anew and build something together and see where it would go.
Oh,
An adventure.
that's good. Yeah, because I know like it could be like a lot of challenges around that, like arriving to the country and adapting
Oh,
both at the
for
same time.
sure. So when we got to Germany, there were there's obviously a lot of work that goes into moving countries, including paperwork and the bureaucracy of it all. But what really tipped me off when I moved there was I wasn't able to transfer my cell phone number to one in Germany, and I got really upset by that for some reason.
Oh,
And that was when I was like, I'm if I were to move again, it would be to just move back to Spain, because I got really frustrated with the whole process. And was, it's not, it doesn't, yeah, it's not as fun as it is when you're in your 20s, because when you're in your 20s, you're like, you do encounter the same problems, and you do have the same forms you have to fill, and you have to have health insurance, and you have to go get your visa or your something stamped or something. And you can never get an appointment for any of these, city hall appointments. But you're young. It's fun. It's part of the process. It's part of the adventure. Now I was doing this in my 30s, so yeah, I was kind of like, okay, I'm done. I want to kind of I want to find my home. I want to plant my seeds and my roots.
yeah.
So that was my thought process. But we've been here 4 years now, and we're thinking of staying a while longer. Yeah.
Ah, that's nice to hear. Yeah, because you say like 2 3 years, and I was thinking like, but
Yeah.
she's four there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to ask you as well, what or where feels like home for you today?
When someone asks me, oh, where are you from? When you hear me speak English, you're like, oh, this person is American. Um, and but then when I but obviously I say American first just because of how I sound, but also because my immediate family's in Florida, so it just makes sense to say, yeah, the States in Florida, because if I needed to go home wherever my family is, wherever I feel safe, that would be back to where my parents are, where the support is. But I think it doesn't have to be a place. So if my parents were not in Florida, if my mom was, I don't know, somewhere else in the country, then where would be home if my parents were in different countries? But now I have my family. My family is now my husband, and whatever we're building together. My family is also his family, and so we're lucky enough that we get along well with our families and we have good relationships with them, and that we feel supported. But essentially, I think the thread here is that home is wherever you feel safe and home and calm and surrounded by love.
Yeah, so yeah, it's more like about a sense of like where your family
Yeah.
and yeah.
So even if I were to go, for example, on a beach in Bali, I would feel probably safe and calm And I would probably tell Rafa, I could live here. I could make
Yeah.
this home.
Ah,
Like a
that's
lot
so
of
nice.
people.
That yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice. Like when you have that and you reflect about that sense or the life that you are building together. So that's
Mm.
very very nice to hear.
I also wanted to ask you, what about you? Like, what is home to you? Because home is different, is a feeling, is a sensation, is for some people, it's a person, you know? I'm just curious because you've also lived in several countries and you're a traveler and you speak multiple languages. Like, what is it for you?
Yeah, no, I think I am related with what you say because is that feeling now with my partner. For example, now we are living in the UK, and I feel yeah, I feel related with you because I feel safe, I feel calm. But
Mm,
I also when I was visiting Venezuela last year, like walking in the streets on or like being there, it makes me
mm,
feel at home as well, despite the fact that my family, I mean, my parents, for example, they are not living in Venezuela anymore. A lot of my friends migrate and left the country too, but it's kind of weird because I felt at
mm.
home there as well. I felt like comfortable. I felt like I
Yeah,
belong to
because of the
the.
familiarity, because you already know the place.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that
Mm,
familiarity. So I am related with what you are telling because now, for example, I feel like when I go to Madrid, that's where my parents are living, I feel I am going back home
mhm.
because my parents are there. But also like to Scotland, the family of Finlay, like you know,
Yeah.
like all this. So I related with what you say, but also I think is that sense of familiarity or sense like of comfort or belong, and I think that only happens with time. You know, like when
Definitely.
you have more time in those places, and also happen like if you make good relationships and you feel like yeah, like that familiarity because you have good relationships around there. That happened to me in Madrid as well. So yeah, it's a, like, but yeah, I think it's a bit of different factors for me. I want to ask you as well, when you look back at your journey, what are you most proud of? Like when you look about all of these moves and decisions that you took.
Sometimes I'm walking the streets in Berlin and I'm like thinking to myself, wow, I live in Berlin. Or, you know, when I was in Spain too, in Madrid, I would stop and be like, wow, I live in Madrid. This is crazy. Like coming from, even though I only lived 10 years in the States, I moved there at 16, so I was pretty impressionable. I was at an age where it was really important for me to fit in, be a part of the culture. So with that, I still feel that I'm culturally American, but I'm also culturally European. So I'm both. And the American in me is like, that's where the, oh my gosh, I live in Berlin, like wow, I live in Madrid, because they're destinations, they're vacations, area. And so I'm just really happy with the path I chose, even though I had no idea where it would lead. I just thought, well, let me try it and see. Yeah, I never would have thought that I would have lived in 7 countries. I never would have thought that I would have met my husband in Spain and that we would live in Germany. And it's nice to stop and like smell those roses a little bit
Yeah.
and just tell yourself like, yeah, you did a lot. If you're happy with it, because I'm a big proponent in changing your environment if you don't like where you are. If you don't like your job, if you're miserable, my Gallup strength, one of them is an activator. And so I take action on whatever I need to do whenever I have this idea, or if I want to change something, I do it.
Yeah, but I think for that, like, you also need to be very connected with what you don't like or you like, and like having also like the opportunities to make these actions. And what are you still learning or unlearning about yourself in all this process? For example, now, what are you still focusing on?
So right now I'm doing a breathwork program. I'm doing a breathwork program because I realized that I have a lot of unprocessed emotions that my body is holding on to. And it's caused my nervous system to be dysregulated. So I'm learning, or I'm unlearning certain patterns that keep me in a state of hypervigilance against my will, and learning to surrender more so that I can have this release of this tension and energy that is stored in there. And the breath work has helped do that. So it's not just breathing techniques and exercises, it's also somatic movements. That means swaying a little bit, doing yoga is one of the things. But I know yoga is not for everybody, and yoga is not necessarily for me either. I never got into it. So I do other things like gentle movements, certain exercise that I do before bed, or I follow this woman on YouTube who does a lot of somatic healing videos, and journaling. I never did before because, again, I was never into it. So I also feel like a lot of things happen or show up in your life when you're ready to do them. Back in the day, this was also introduced to me, but I had no desire, so I never did it. But now came a point in my life where I was feeling all of this, and I needed a way to release it. And so this showed up again.
That's so interesting. I really want to know more about that program. Is in Berlin or is online?
It's online. I started last year, and I found a somatic therapist. She's also a trauma certified therapist. She's certified in a million things. Through her sessions, she also provides a program through an app. But she also, there's also this YouTube practice. I can share it with you as well.
Yeah, we can let in the description as well because it's very interesting. I did once a class about about breathing, and it was very impressed for me. Like, oh my god, this is such a basic thing that we do every time or all the day, like all the days, and you can see the difference when you manage to regulate that. And yeah, like I did like a specific class about that, but also like meditation that is quite similar in that sense. But I think it's very interesting, and
you need a lot of patience.
I think so.
It's a new practice. It's like going to the gym. So for me, these last 2 weeks have been challenging because I'm forcing myself to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping it just becomes embedded into my routine eventually.
Yeah. I will have a look about that. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
And also the journaling. Well, I am like a fan of journaling, like all the time. Like, but I have like my stages of life too, because there are like some stages of my life I can write every day, like all the day, like like all the time. But other times, like, okay, I can't handle this, I just don't want to, I can't be bothered. And I really want to. And other times are like, I can't be bothered. So what I'm trying to find now is the balance, like to get into the routine. And yeah, I think it's like there are like some tools to get away, or to put somewhere your thoughts. So that's good. I like it, like, yeah.
Yes.
And not only in your mind. So we are going to the end of the episode. I really enjoyed talking to you, and knowing more about your stories is very interesting. And I can see all what you learn and how all these experiences have shaped you. And I am looking forward as well what it will be the next adventure or the next.
Yeah.
But before we
Let's see.
before we leave, I want to ask you, is what question you like to ask to people, like they can reflect like about that question after hearing your story?
For me, when I figured out what my Gene Keys profile was and I started reading the book, the intro of the book from the author was just giving context on everything, and something that stuck with me. He said that we have two sides of each other, just like two sides of a coin. We have our light shadow, or our light and our shadow. So, for example, when I live in my light, I am at peace, I have inner peace, I'm calm. And if I live in my shadow, one of them is like, so the opposite is anger. And so in the book, in the intro, he says that the reason why we see a lot of wars going on, a lot of hatred, famine, and just disasters in the world, is because most people live in their shadow. And that was very powerful to me because most of us don't realize that we're living in our shadow. Most of us are not in touch with our inner being or what's going on, or we feel like there's a lot of injustice in the world towards obviously other people, but mostly also towards ourselves. And so I guess for me, whenever whoever listens is ready to do that, I might think like, how would you how does one release that, the things that they carry in them, and maybe how do you make time for it? Are you really paying attention to what your thoughts are they your thoughts, or are they thoughts forming from just all of the things you're getting externally, and just kind of like putting all of them down and having a look at them, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, it
I don't know if that makes sense.
yeah, it makes
Well, how can I turn this into a proper
no, I
question?
think it makes sense, and thank you for the context. I think it's very important question, because I always ask this at the end of the episode, because it really helps to, like, I believe in the power of questions, so people can ask questions that they, like, you ask the right questions to yourself to answer things that you maybe are ignoring about yourself or about your experiences and all of this. So I think this is very helpful to reflect about it, and especially thinking on people that they are going through changes in their life as well, like migration or other type of changes.
Yes.
I think it really helps to ease the transition or the change.
Yeah, and also I guess it gets kind of ties in with the why question that we're all familiar with, and just like, why am I feeling that like this? And then you just answer it, and then you just ask the why question like 5 times, or until you get to the
Yeah,
root of it. And then that's when you can make that change, or be like, okay, what can I do about it? What can I change around me? Even small habits can do a world of a
yeah.
difference.
Yeah, 100%. And thank you so much, Jennifer. I really appreciate our conversation
Yes,
and
you're
know more
welcome.
about, well, it was a summary about all of these adventures, but it was very
Yes.
interesting to see how, like, you experience all of these migrations, but also like the feelings and the challenges going through all of these, and especially the learnings that you share with us today. And yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much. And for anyone who's listening to us, you can share us what part of the episode resonate with you, or if you want to propose a subject or a topic, or if you have questions to Jennifer, you can write us, and I will let all the links and resources that you mentioned in the description as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.